So we're jumping back into the evidence of John Scott to the Post Office Horizon IT inquiry, and there's discussion between Cartwright King and the Post Office of convening a database of known Horizon issues that acts as a central repository so that there are not the issues that they're encountering regarding disclosure in the prosecutions of subpostmasters, and to tighten up the system. And it seems that that is convened in 2013. Does this have a relation to the cessation of prosecutions against subpostmasters? Let's find out and jump into the inquiry.
Can I turn to start asking you about the substance of issues by looking at an issue which arises towards the end of the era of private prosecutions. So it's therefore out of turn in the chronology. I want to start with it to work out whether it tells us anything about the values of the investigation and prosecution functions of the Post Office more generally in the earlier period. And the topic is the recording of information and the disclosure of material in criminal proceedings. Okay? I'm going to deal with matters chronologically within this topic to give you some context. We're in the year 2013, which, right at the end of which the prosecution function, as we've discussed, came to an end, okay? Can we start by looking at something which happened on the 3rd of July 2013? Do you remember a man called Simon Clark?
Yes.
What do you recall about him?
He was a lawyer with Cartwright King.
So he was an in-house barrister, do you remember, at the solicitor's firm Cartwright King?
When you say in-house, for us, he was an external lawyer.
Yes, he was a barrister in Cartwright King, or did you just know him as a lawyer?
Lawyer.
Okay. Did you enjoy a working relationship with him?
I don't recall actually having a working relationship with him. I may have met him once or twice, but there wasn't a working relationship. There was nothing.
Cartwright King were the firm of choice for the conduct of private prosecutions, is that right, for the Post Office?
Yes.
And was that for the entirety of the period up until now when you were the head of security, so from 2007 to 2013?
I only recall them round about separation, either at separation or just prior to separation.
I.e. from 2011 onwards, is that right?
Well, separation was 2012, so it was either just before that or around that time.
In any event, on the 3rd of July 2013, Mr. Clark attended a conference at Post Office headquarters to consider issues relating to the reliability of the Horizon system and the prosecution of sub-postmasters for criminal offences. Now, there's no note that we have of this meeting of the 3rd of July 2013, but the advice that he gave at that meeting is addressed in a later advice that he wrote, which is dated the 2nd of August. Can we look at that first, please? It's poll 406799. So this is an advice dated the 2nd of August 2013, take it from me rather than looking at the end of the document. And can we just read paragraphs 1 and 2 together? He says, on the 3rd of July 2013, I attended the Post Office in conference at Post Office head office to consider issues relating to the Horizon computer system and the prosecution of criminal offences committed against Post Office by sub-postmasters and clerks. One of the topics considered by the conference was that of disclosure. I advised that there ought to be a single central hub, the function of which was to act as the primary repository for all Horizon-related issues.
I mean, that seems sensible considering we know from, for example, from hearing from Stephen Bradshaw that he felt, well, once I've handed it over once. It's up to the lawyers, it's up to Cartwright King to find it. But certainly if there was a central hub that maybe they could access directly, or maybe even the investigation team or somebody at the Post Office could be responsible for, they could ensure that these issues or anything related is actually passed on to a full picture of the case is provided to the lawyers prior to decisions on prosecutions being made, or indeed prior to the court appearance if they've decided to proceed with a prosecution.
The hub would collate from all sources into one location all Horizon-related defects, bugs, complaints and queries, queries and Fujitsu remedies, thereby providing a future expert witness and those charged with disclosure duties with recourse to a single information point where all Horizon issues could be identified and considered. The rationale behind this advice derived from the need to protect the Post Office from the current situation repeating itself in future.
I guess that's one motive. The other motive you could say would be it would help ensure that justice is done, i.e. we don't actually accuse people of things that they've not done.
Did you attend that conference, the 3rd of July 2013 conference?
I don't recall attending.
And that answer, I don't recall, is capable of a wide range of possibilities, including, it's very likely that I did attend, but I've got no present recollection, it being 10 years on, that I did, right down to, I don't think that I did. If I had attended, I would remember it, albeit I've got no present recollection. Where in the spectrum are we?
The latter.
Okay. You don't think that you did?
Correct.
Do you recognise what is said there, the need to create a single central hub to collate from a range of sources information about defects, bugs, complaints, queries, and remedies?
Yes.
And so one way or another, you were told about the need to create this hub. Is that right?
I was told, I'm not necessarily say I was perhaps fully briefed in terms of its requirements.
I guess it was for up to someone at the Post Office to maybe design the requirements following the legal advice that they've got from this barrister at Cartwright King.
You said that you were told but not necessarily fully briefed.
I don't recall getting a real briefing in terms of the requirements of setting up the weekly meetings.
Moving on to paragraph 3, he says, the Post Office accepted that advice and accordingly a weekly conference call meeting was established so as to meet the requirement of the central hub. Participants were informed that they should bring all Horizon-related issues that they had encountered to the meeting. And then
so it'll be interesting to know what finally happened with this hub, because it sounds like a good idea on the face of it. Is this one of the drivers potentially behind the cessation of prosecutions of subpostmasters?
The page, minutes were to be taken, centrally retained and disseminated to those who required the information. This list to include Post Office's Horizon expert witness. Is the first part of that paragraph correct, going back to the bottom of page 1? Accordingly, a weekly conference call meeting was established so as to meet the requirement of the central hub.
Yes.
Can we go on to paragraph 4? 3 such conference calls were convened, each conducted on a Wednesday morning. A representative from Cartwright King Solicitors attended each meeting. A minute taker was appointed for each call, and I understand that each of the minute takers retained their own handwritten minutes. We'll come back to all of that in a moment.